And this one is a cooperative legacy game where players are going to be trying to complete different missions, primarily through pickup and deliver, as they move through a story and discover different secrets about the world, and modify the terrain of the board, the different locations, and even the characters through the decisions that they make and the different secrets that they uncover along the way, even introducing some new rules and mechanisms that will change the game every time you play. But the way this game works is players are going to be drawing 4 different character cards at the start of the game, and there's a bunch of different characters included in the game, with each of them having some different stats for their movement and carrying capacity, as well as their own unique abilities. But since there's so many different options within the game, but you're only going to be using 4, this means that you can have a very different combination from game to game, even if you did play a similar scenario over again. But you're going to be taking each of these cards as well as the associated tokens and then putting those tokens out in the 4 corners of the board. The main board is also going to have a few different locations that can also be modified with different stickers as you play throughout the Legacy campaign. There's also going to be some different locations that can generate resources, as well as these hidden encounter tokens. The different colors on the board also represent different types of terrain, and this is going to be important when it comes to movement, but can also have some other effects as well. In order to win the game, players are going to be trying to complete different mission cards that are revealed at the start of the game, but then players are going to be playing over a series of rounds, performing actions in order to try and fulfill those cards. Each round consists of a day phase and a night phase, and during the day phase, players are going to be moving those 4 characters around the board, gathering different resources and then delivering those resources to different locations to complete missions as well as get different benefits. But they'll also be fighting back different threats, which I will come back to in a second here. And then they'll also be able to visit various encounter tokens. But what is really interesting about the movement in this game is that you don't really have a fixed movement in the form of hexes or spaces. Instead, players are going to be using these movement tokens in order to move across the board. It's a really neat mechanism that allows you to kind of freeform your movement in order to connect to different locations and points of interest that you might want to visit. But each of these tokens does also come with various colors on them, and you need to match those colors with the terrain that you're moving over in order to be able to use that token. And you can see that here, and yes, the white token is a wild, which gives you a little bit more flexibility. But like I said, there's a bunch of different points of interest that you can visit, and some of these will have positive and negative effects, while others might have a page number. And whenever you see that, you're going to be taking the encounter booklet, going to that page, and resolving whatever effects and story that that has to reveal. But after players have performed all their actions, then we're going to be moving into the night phase, and this is where a bunch of new things can happen out on the board, because you're going to be drawing different night tokens that can have all sorts of different effects. They can add more resources or points of interest to the board, but they can also add those threats and hazards that I mentioned earlier. There's different types of hazards that can be added to the board, and they're going to be going into designated locations, and if they ever overfill that location, then that is one of the ways that you can lose the game. There's also some different enemies that can get spawned out on the board as well, and if you get too many of them out, it can also cost you the game, but they're also going to be blocking areas of the board, because if an enemy ever comes into contact with one of your heroes, then that's going to be losing you the game. So this means that you're going to have to take care with your movement and try to avoid locations where you think they might spawn. Of course, like I said, this is a legacy game, so you're going to be leveling up and discovering new mechanisms and ways to maneuver out on the board. So I'm sure you will discover new ways to deal with all of these threats. And also, I'm sure they'll find more creative ways to get in your way. But the game continues like this, with players trying to complete those different mission cards in order to move the story forward and discover more of what it has to offer as they play through the overarching campaign. As always, if you are interested in this one, I will have the links in the description below, and of course you can click to get notified.